Welcome back to the Think Twice MTG podcast. I'm your host, Drew.
And I'm Alan.
And today we're going to be talking about some of our favorite, if not most successful archetypes in the history of Magic. Bit of a surprise to you when I came in today with this topic.
Yes. It also took me a second to fully understand what you meant. Because I was like, Drew, we just talked about our favorite decks.
Yes.
Isn't this just the same thing, just kind of more broad? And then you were like, no, you're wrong, you stupid idiot.
I didn't say that.
This is what I mean. Yeah, okay. You said it with your face.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I might have said it with my face.
Yeah.
The reason I want to talk about this topic today is that last week I borrowed a deck from a dear friend who walks around with something like $11,000.
Most of my friends are humans.
Yeah. Walks around with like $11,000 in Magic cards in his backpack. And he lent me that Brood Scale combo deck, or a version of it.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was playing it, I thought to myself, oh, this is Twin.
Yeah, okay.
This is just Twin. That's what this deck is. It's Twin that you can put on the battlefield earlier and hold up as an eventual threat forever, and then you can win a number of different ways.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, I wonder how many different kinds of decks like that there have been, where it's like, here, our aim is to do X in the early game or mid game, and then either combo off or be able to win like a mid-rangey kind of battle, or but basically like hold up the threat of like I can win at instant speed anytime I want.
Right.
And I got to thinking like Delver of Secrets has been a deck similar to that.
And we'll often say something. This maybe is a good indication that it's a highly successful and repetitive strategy. We'll say like, oh, you just play a Delver game,
right?
And it's a way to have a shorthand to describe the way a deck tries to strategize for a win. So, so you already mentioned...
How's it play? Twin. How's it play? Delver. Got it.
Yeah, right? Like, oh, got it. Draw, go. Okay, done.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to know the exact iteration of a deck.
Right.
But instead, and so, like, I guess maybe that's a good place to start, is what decks have been so good historically that they spawn names of the archetype.
Right.
And then I guess if we want to sprinkle in our own personal preference and experiences with those, that's fine. So like, I guess then we can talk about, you started off with Twin. So we can start there. When we say something is like Twin, or it's doing Twin things, or I've heard streamers say it this way, they say, oh, it's just Splinter Twin.
Right.
That's the card it comes from, is the card Splinter Twin. Was recently unbanned in Modern. And
didn't do a thing.
And by unbanned recently, I mean like now, 9 months ago or something like that, because that's recent. So,
so if anybody's worried about unbanning Deathrite Shaman,
yeah,
here's your evidence that it won't matter at all.
Yeah, right. So Splinter Twin was a strategy. We weren't playing at the time it originally came out. I assume it had some sort of legs in Standard, Extended, whatever, and then just came into Modern. I'm not exactly sure of all the timing, but that doesn't really matter. The most famous iteration of it is the Modern version of the deck that would play one of two cards that would allow you to tap or untap something. So then when you put Splinter Twin on it, you tapped that thing, made a copy. That copy is haste. Oh, it entered, you do the thing again, and now you have a copy of it that can attack, but then you untap the original one, you make another one, and so the idea was I can just make as many copies of this thing, so it doesn't matter that the creatures are often a 1/4.
Right.
I can make a million 1/4s and swing with them.
Right.
So you will die.
Right.
And so, like, the idea is, as you mentioned, of that archetype, and then many other archetypes kind of fall into this same plan. And I'm sure there were decks that played like this before Splinter Twin, but maybe didn't have the same notoriety as Twin, which is why we don't call them something else.
Right.
And it's just the idea of like, I don't have to be constantly getting closer and closer to my win, because all I have to do is just go A plus B, sometimes plus C, and it's game over. So you have to respect it. So these types of archetypes often play almost like a control game,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like, I'm just gonna be like, no, that doesn't happen. You stop doing this. I'll play
Tap
some
that down, bounce that.
play some value here, and then like, oh, you gave me a window. This thing, that thing, game over.
Yeah, you're done.
Because you put the shields down, and you can't ever put the shields down.
It puts so much pressure on your opponent because they have to have the right amount of cards, the right type of cards. You have to draw them in the specific order sometimes. You have to be able to know, like, which, do I use push or bolt here?
Yeah.
You know, like, that distinction can make the difference in, like, whether or not you are, quote-unquote, shields down. And, like, if you're the twin player, you can sit on the other side of the field and be like, okay, if they have permission, or if they have discard, or if they have removal, I can exhaust that with these series of plays. Like, if they go for discard, I can flash in my spell stutter spray.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Or if they go for, if they're gonna use a bolt or whatever, I can just let that happen because I have another one in my hand, or we'll just try this again next turn, or
right.
That kind of thing. When I first saw Twin being played, it was at Pro Tour Fate Reforged, and it was Summer Bloom Titan versus Splinter Twin, and I can't remember I remember Justin Cohen was on Summer Bloom Titan, which was the first iteration of that deck as well.
Yep.
And was just ungodly compared to because Summer Bloom put 3 lands in a play,
something like that. Yeah,
2 additional land
some stupid amount.
And Antonio De La something or other flew over from Spain, and he was on the Twin build, and I was like, I didn't know anything about Twin, and Cohen was playing out his cards, doing the math or whatever, and his opponent was doing this.
Yep, that's fine. Yep.
And then Cohen would pass a turn, and he would go, land, pass.
Yep.
And then
right
it would
back
be
to
like, all right, and then he'd draw, and he'd be like, I flash in this thing, and like tap down that land. And then it was like, And then he would do something and pass back the turn, and then all of a sudden his opponent would be like, this, and show the card, and like, yep, okay, game 2. And I was like, what has happened?
Yeah, because like with combos like Splinter Twin or things, I've found my own experiences doing that playing Yawgmoth, where like people learn to recognize the board state that says I'm doing the thing.
Yeah.
And they're just like, yeah, that's good enough. Or sometimes you'll see players in matches just say like, oh, just show me the blank. And they just go, oh, grab the deck, say it's right here, and they say, yep, okay, confirm you got it, move on. And they don't actually play out the combo. So if you're in the position that you're in, or that you were in, and you don't know what's happening or how it works, you're like, he just showed a card and the game was over.
Yeah.
I don't even know who won.
Fun story. One of the last GPs I went to before COVID was when KCI was still legal.
Oh yeah.
And I was playing a guy, and I realized on like turn 3 what he was doing, which is, if you've ever played KCI, way too late.
Yeah, you were done.
And so he was starting to chain off, and I called a judge over, and I said, if I ask him to show me the what is it? The red spell
Pyrite Spellbomb.
Pyrite Spellbomb in his deck. Can he just show it to me?
Can
he show it to me, and I'll concede the game? And he said, yeah, that's fine. And so the guy just went into his deck and showed me the Spellbomb, and I was like, okay, let's go to game 2. And then I lost game 2. So, but the difference there was I was aware of what KCI needed in order to win.
Yes, and you saw the signs. So KCI, another combo deck, but a combo I would not describe as Splinter Twin.
Right.
It has an older name, Eggs, or maybe even, I guess it's not quite Cheerios, which is a little bit more closer to like some of the affinity stuff we see happening, where you just spew your whole hand of very cheap stuff onto the table. Cheerios, because there's a lot of zeros.
Yeah.
And so like don't confuse Twin with combo.
Instant game winning combo.
Yeah.
Does not mean twin.
Yeah. And so like Amulet Titan is a great current combo deck that does not play like Twin.
Right.
You can see the pieces getting closer and closer with Titan, in like you see them their ability to combo increases with every turn, because like, well, now they have one more land, so they're representing this much more mana, or they have this extra piece that gives them extra land drops on a turn, so now that enables this, or this key piece is in the graveyard, and so it's literally like building blocks up to like, and then I have to still be able to put the last one on there before anything actually works, but you can see those blocks building up. Where Splinter Twin was, you could literally have nothing but lands and a couple of cards in hand and be like, I might just be dead.
Yeah, I mean, like you could, your opponent might have 4 untapped lands or 3 untapped lands on the battlefield.
Yeah.
And you could be like, I don't know, because they could flash in their target.
Yep.
Untap, play land, twin. Splinter Twin, and the game was over.
Yeah, and so you're like, well, I have to be able to do that.
And they buy themselves a turn.
Because they can also, like, if you leave up 1 mana for interaction, say a lightning bolt type removal spell, they just tap down that land, and so then even if you respond kill the thing, they didn't have to commit the bad card that wins them a game. Auras are generally bad cards because if the creature that they're on gets killed, you're down 2 cards, and so thus card disadvantage bad. Dis is a prefix meaning wrong, bad. Sorry, it's about to be school time starting again, so I'm back into this.
Wow, that was straight teacher mode.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this question.
Yep.
The Saheeli Rye Cat combo deck.
Yep.
Many people have called that twin.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I really feel that it is, because I feel like it's half twin.
I feel like it's just bad twin.
Right, like you have the infinite 1/4 whatever combo, but you lack the ability to clearly take control of the first 1 through 3 turns of the game.
Yeah, so like a lot of the deck was just, okay, here's my removal spell, here I do this, and so like you only needed to play the 8 cards to win the game, which is really the most powerful part of a twin-esque combo, is that you're only dedicating such a small percentage of your deck towards, these are the things I have to use to win the game. If you think of like a traditional just kind of mid-range deck,
I'm playing a 52 card 52 card deck, mid-range deck.
Yeah.
But
like
8 cards dedicated to a game winning
But so
combo.
like, say for instance, take my current modern Death Shadow build. I've got 16 threats in the deck, and it's like, well, I need at least one of them to hit multiple times in order to win, so that's why I have to have more than that. Splinter Twin as a grand archetype, whether it's the Saheeli Cat version from standard years past, an actual Splinter Twin deck, whatever, only has to play half of that number, and they're like, this just wins the game. I find one of each of them, and that's it. So, like, I think the Saheeli deck was the modern version of Splinter Twin because it could not be as efficient or as well timed. And by that, I mean the threats in Splinter Twin were flash threats.
Right.
So you could just be like, oh, my opponent didn't...
Both of them.
Yeah, my opponent didn't do anything. I can play this on the end of your turn and know if it's safe on my turn to go for it because either you killed the thing or I tapped down your mana or, oh, you had counter magic for my threat. Well, my Splinter Twin is still safe in my hand. And I just have to find the next threat. Where the Saheeli Cat version, it was just both sorcery speed. But a lot of times that deck just played until turn 7 and then just went, oh, shields are down turn 7. Saheeli, Felidar Sovereign.
Yeah.
And then it just went off.
We're all done.
Yeah, and so it was like, oh, okay. Guess that happened.
So the deck was fun to play. Lots of people enjoyed it. It made for quick games. It also, and I think this is a fun side effect of having a deck like this, it made Thoughtseize good. Mm-hmm. And when Thoughtseize is good in a format, I think Magic is better.
Yeah. I agree, not only because I'm a Thoughtseize fan.
Up top, buddy.
But also because, like, when Thoughtseize is good, it means that there's generally a variety of types of things you have to answer, because you can't just be like, well, I can just answer it all with Lightning Bolt or Fatal Push or whatever. And so that means there's a variety. Variety is better. It also means, generally to me, that some of the most broken things you can do are played at sorcery speed. Mm-hmm. Because when they're played at instant speed, if you go back to the Crashing Footfalls and Cascade era of Modern of a year ago or whatever it was, something like that, it's somebody's gonna be like, it was 2.5 years ago, dude.
And I'm gonna be like, oh my god,
oh my god, it was that. Oh,
so old.
Like, that hurts. But like when the best things to be doing are instant speed, you have to play counter magic. Because now my thought seize, generally my removal spell, they're too late. So when thought seize is good, it means also the most broken stuff I need to just have a catch-all answer for is sorcery speed, which is the appropriate speed for the big, splashy, like kind of game ending in a single fell swoop stuff. And so like I think right now we're seeing a modern format where like you're incentivized to play creature removal, you're incentivized to play interaction, whether that's stack interaction, hand interaction, something like that. And it's not just you have to do your thing as fast as possible. There's enough things that say, hey, these things need answers, but there are answers for them. And I think like any good, especially high power format like modern, it's not just there's an answer that just says, hey, this can't exist anymore. It's you still have to know how to play your answers and sequence them. But there seems to be a decent balance between the power and abundance of removal, the power of the threats that we have, and at least a decent variety of different strategies you can employ. We're in one of those spots in modern where the format isn't being like completely dominated by one thing, which is the first time in quite a while we can say that, because we had Underworld Breach. Yeah. Before that, it was the One Ring. Before that, it was Nadu, and like
don't forget Grief Scam.
Yeah. Then you've got Grief and Fury doing all of their kinds of stuff.
I hated that.
And like you just keep on going back, and there's a lot of these iterations, and we keep on. The goal is to have more of the little pockets that we've had, where it's like, sure, you can play a combo deck.
Yeah.
And maybe you catch somebody unawares, and it's a really good point for that. But then there are ways to answer it if people want to answer it. And I think the benefit of a format like Modern is that it's so wide, and we've mentioned this before, that you cannot be prepared for everything.
Right.
And so that means that you can play tier 2 and tier 3 strategies consistently and still have a decent chance against anything, because it's not just like, well, I was prepared for the, one of the 2 decks in the format, so guess what? Sorry, you're just, hated out of the room. And instead it's like, oh, the people didn't bring their X. So I'm great right now, because there's too much for people to try to answer. So you can't just be like, I'm going to put in 7 graveyard hate cards, sorry Hogak, and 8 artifact hate cards, because I also don't want to get beat by this thing, and I'm just ready. And so like then you can't play any graveyard deck, even if it's not the busted one, because you're just like, I'm just getting hated out.
Yeah.
So I definitely agree. I think things like removal, thought seize are indicators that a format is healthy, because interaction is good. When you're incentivized to play interaction, a format is good.
I agree. And shockingly.
Yes.
And I found that I very much enjoyed playing the Brood Scale combo deck.
Okay.
It's certainly like on my radar. It certainly went from like I wasn't even considering playing it. I played it on a whim because I hadn't played anything like it before.
Right.
And now it's like, we'll see. If it's, I enjoyed playing it that one time. Maybe I tinker with it just a little bit to make it more something that I enjoy. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's Jund Brood Scale.
Right.
Something like that. Get a Writhing Chrysalis in there or something like that.
So just to really quickly run over this combo for anybody who's not familiar with it, you have the card Basking Brood Scale, and generally the artifact Blade of the Blood Chief, I believe is its name. And that says whenever a creature dies, you put a +1/+1 counter on the thing it's equipped to. Brood Scale says whenever it gets a +1/+1 counter, you make a 0/1 Eldrazi spawn that can be sacrificed for mana. So that thing enters, you can sack it for mana, gets a counter, another one enters, and you can do that to make as much colorless mana as you want, and then you just have to do something with it. Plus, you've also made your Brood Scale just as big, and so then maybe you put in a walking, you've got Walking Ballista generally in that deck, or things. This can also be combined with Glaring Fleshraker to go off in combination together.
That card is so underrated.
Yeah. And so it's basically a way to say, I put these 2 cards together, now I can make a bunch of mana, and then pick whatever way seems fun to you to use that mana to actually win the game on the spot. Sometimes you can also just be like, and swing.
Yeah.
because you've made a massive thing.
I made a massive thing, and I attacked into a 40/40 new Ulamog that had to chump block me.
Nice.
So achievement unlocked.
Yeah. Generally, and correct me if I'm wrong, generally the Brood Scale decks also play Urza Saga.
It does.
And the thing you could put in there is, what's the +1/+1 trample and lifelink, and you can like pay some in the thing from Theros.
Yeah, the artifact, the equip.
Yeah, I'm gonna blank on it. Shadow Spear.
There it is. Never didn't have it.
Yeah, you can put Shadow Spear in it, and then it has trample now, and so I just trampled over.
That deck, the Brood Scale deck that I played was chock full of cards I'd never played before: Urza Saga, Brood Scale, and Emrakul of Promise End.
Yep.
And I played each of them, and they each won me a game. And the Urza Saga won me a game because I ended up just beating my opponent to death with 2 3/3s. And then Emrakul won me the game because I was able to take my opponent by playing his turn from 5 guards down to none and wiped his board.
Yeah.
And then I had a 13/13 flying trampler that was immune from had a protection from instants.
Yeah, so strange how that could be good.
And then on multiple games, the Brood Scale got to a point where I either cast a huge walking ballista or just attacked into a naked board with like a lethal attack.
Yeah. One of the things I think is really cool with this deck as a way that it can win is you make a bunch of mana and then you cast Kozilek's Command to scry through your whole deck. You find the thing you need, put it on top, draw, and then you still have more mana to go off and do the thing. So it's like you don't even have to have it necessarily in hand. You could have your payoff or Kozilek's Command, which is also incidentally one of the best cards in Modern.
Good.
And you're just like, oh, this now also just finds the combo threat. So it's like you have that many more. If you're playing 4 Walking Ballista and 4 Kozilek's Command, have 8 payoffs. It's so much easier to have one in hand. Not to mention that Kozilek's Command also is just great in, every single situation in a game.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I've ever had it cast against me and been like, yeah, I don't care what this does.
Yeah. It almost universally ramps whoever's casting it.
Yeah.
And while Scry has certainly now been supplanted by Surveil.
Yeah.
Scrying so unbelievably deep.
Yeah, Scry 12 is just...
It's almost Dig Through Time.
It's better than Dig Through Time. Dig Through Time looks at 7.
Yeah.
And so, you don't get 2 cards, but you find the one card you really need. And we've mentioned on this show before how card quality is often more important than card quantity.
Well, it's also what they're building the game around now. Like, card advantage is now...
Yeah.
+1 cards is out the window. It's about finding the right card at the right time.
You have to have the right card to do the stuff. So, I think it's a cool deck. You said it felt to you like Splinter Twin.
Yeah.
I think there are times where Yawgmoth feels kind of Splinter Twin-y.
Yeah.
I think it's also kind of along like a different line. It's kind of like a Cheerios-y deck.
Sure.
Because it's just like, I'm just trying to play as many things each turn as I can, because it's like, okay, turn 1 I'll play a Mana Dork, turn 2 I'll then use the Mana Dork plus the land to put a Wall of Roots, add a green, play a land, cast Malevolent Rumble, use the spawn to play another thing, or, like, you go like Wall of Roots into something else, and it's just like, oh, you've got a ton of things. But
I'm not afraid of any of them until you have the other card.
My wife was actually asking me because she was listening to the most recent thing I did about my updated Yawgmoth build, and she said, wait, you should do it. You should tell people also how to counter this deck. And we were standing in our driveway raking up yard debris, and I was like, oh, that's easy. And it's not exactly easy, but I like to hyperbolize. And she said, well, what is it? And I said, kill the idiots. And she's like, I don't get what that means. I'm like, well, if I said that to like Drew sitting across the table from me, he said, hey, how do you beat Yawgmoth? And I say, kill the idiots. You're like, okay, I know what you mean. You kill all the cards that don't seem worth killing.
Right.
And then
I would never spend a card in my hand to kill the worthless Wall of Roots.
Yeah.
But you have to.
But that's the thing that's going to let me go off. And that's where sometimes Yawgmoth feels like Splinter Twin, because it's like I have a very unassuming board that looks like I have nothing. And I can't tell you how many turns I've started with as the Yawgmoth player. And I'm looking at it like, this is just a random whatever turn. And then I just make myself continue to take actions as I can. It's like, well, I'll draw another card with the Yawgmoth
Just
ability.
exhaust your ability.
And then and then all of a sudden I draw into a card, and then I'm like, wait, if I do this,
yeah,
then I do this, and now all of a sudden, like, you like hit this point, and it's just like, brrr, oh look, it led to a win.
Yeah.
Like, I got there.
It's like playing solitaire, and you're like, okay, I found the one right thing to do.
Yeah.
And now the doors.
Yeah,
are open.
the dominoes start to fall so much more quickly. So, like, I don't think is, I guess maybe to kind of wrap up our Splinter Twin segment. I don't think I've really played many decks that I think fall into this category.
Well, I think that they don't want to create them.
Yes.
And I think B, they have a nasty habit of just taking over formats and making them just horribly unfun to play.
Yeah, when you have a deck that can put 52 cards in to say, I'm just going to make sure
this.
Yeah, I'm just going to make sure I don't lose.
Right.
And then 8 cards that say I win.
Yeah.
It makes it so you can answer pretty much anything.
Yeah, I'm going to turtle up in my base until I launch a nuke.
Yeah, and it's like and my opponent is forced to commit mana because they have to try to kill me because I have this inevitability that is just looming out there of my Splinter Twin or insert whatever combo. So then they naturally have to put their defenses down, which makes you more likely to have an opening to go for the combo. And you're just like, hey, look, if you had held up mana, you would have been able to maybe stop this, but then you would be no closer to winning, and I wouldn't have gone for it. And so it's kind of like damned if you do, damned if you don't. And so, yeah, they can very quickly become not great decks to have around, and so I think it's definitely difficult to have a design of a deck that fits into this Splinter Twin archetype that is healthy.
Sure.
And the thing that I think, in my opinion, that Wizards needs to do is never purposefully design one of these. They just have to, like...
They're good at the opposite of it,
yes,
too.
like, they're like, oh, we want these things to work together, so we are going to make sure they work together.
Right.
Well, that often makes things like, well, this is very clearly the best thing you can do.
Right.
And so then why would you do anything else, and this is oppressive, and then we have to ban it, where if you just let things kind of happen naturally and like, oh, wow, look, this combines with this. Blade of the Blood Chief, I don't think they were thinking like, oh, this card from, I don't know when Blade of the Blood Chief came out.
Doesn't matter.
But whatever. And Basking Broodscale, a common from Modern Horizons 3, are like, these things combo, we'll let them go find it.
It wasn't as easy to put together as Nadu plus any 0 mana attach ability.
So, like, so Blade of the Blood Chief was originally printed in Zendikar? Like, OG Zendikar. So
we've had it for 15 years.
Yeah, right. We've had it for well over a decade into its second decade, and Broodscale came out whenever Modern Horizons 3 came out. What?
A year and a half, 2 years ago.
Oh god, ouch. So yeah, but right. So it's like they weren't thinking like, oh, we need to make a thing for Blade of the Blood Chief.
Right.
It just so happens, and those are sometimes the best combos because they're not pushed too far because it's like, oh, well, this one thing randomly happens to work with this. So now I have to put together the pieces to make it happen. And then you often end up with bad card A plus bad card B makes good thing.
Yeah.
And so you're not ending up with a combo where it's like both of these cards are really good on their own and they're even better together. Now, these aren't combo cards, but I think a great example of this is Guide of Souls and Ocelot Pride.
Sure.
They were designed, clearly designed to play together. Like, hey, look, we want this one to be good. This thing enables it very clearly. And then this one, so like when you have an Ocelot Pride on its own, you have to work a lot harder to get it to start making other cats. You either have to have some other source of life gain or it has to get in through combat. And that means there just can't be something with 2 toughness on the other side.
So I was recently having a conversation with a good friend of ours, and I was basically making the argument that Guide of Souls is better than Deathrite Shaman.
I agree.
And he said if it was banned, which I don't think Guide of Souls will be banned.
No.
Can you simply put the 1-drop white Soul Sister?
Sure. Yeah.
In its place and have Boros energy effectively be the same thing? And I was like, no, because you get the life gain to get the tokens, but you don't get the energy creation from which gives you the evasion, which gives you the reach, which gives you the
and also then powers up your removal, your static prisons, and your galvanic discharges.
So
that
every
now
other
you
card
can
in your
answer
deck gets
everything.
worse.
Yeah,
Right.
and so it's like, oh, okay. So yeah. But like anyway, like Ocelot Pride, good card on its own. Guide of Souls, good card on its own.
Well,
and they're both better together.
yeah, they're peanut butter and chocolate.
So it's like you often end up with, like, in my opinion, with the pre-designed combos, you end up with that. Now, also we have times that they just completely don't realize a combo is going to happen. A la
cat combo.
Yeah, Sahili Cat, where they're like, oh, these
5 seconds after the preview
this.
was
Yeah. Same thing with Nadu, is that it got previewed and somebody was like,
hey,
don't you just do the thing with the thing and then
don't
it goes
you have
off?
this and it, yeah.
At least with Nadu, it was words have failed me. At least with Nadu, it was like it took a little bit longer to figure out the convoluted way to make the combo.
It was tough,
but
once you figured it out, the same problem with KCI.
Yes,
is that people became too good at figuring it out.
Yeah.
And once the pilots of the convoluted decks are good at it, the format is solved.
Yeah, because then other people can learn from them and just learn how to go through it.
Thanks a lot,
and
Matt Nass.
Yeah, right.
Look it up.
So,
all right, so we're going to transition into Delver.
Yep, go for it.
So Delver is a strategy that largely takes place in Legacy.
Okay, yeah.
So that's where I'm going to start this conversation. Delver of Secrets, blue for a 1/1 something or other, and it has an ability that if you, like I believe at upkeep, you reveal the top card of your library. If it's an instant or sorcery, you can flip or transform Delver of Secrets, and it becomes a 3/2 flyer. Okay, relatively innocuous, right?
Yeah.
But 1 mana, and here's the thing that I think that like everybody needs to be getting better at is, if there's effectively a game action that takes place without you having any kind of investment in it, that triggers a card to get better in almost any way, that card needs to be on your radar for like it being playable in a constructed format.
Yep.
So upkeep, reveal the top card of your library, instant or sorcery, you transform Delver into a 3/2 flyer. Well, a 1 mana 3/2 flyer is pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Way underrated. So then, if you are able to flip it, you can win the game because it's so rare that someone will have a blocker with either reach or flying, and that'll 3 damage is not as good as 4 damage, very clearly. And that's kind of been the standard for if you want to get a game over fast, you got to be doing 4.
Yeah, right.
But 3 is like in the realm of, this is going to get the job done here. You know, throw a bolt or a fetch shock on the table or something like that. And then you just have to keep that thing safe. Now, in Legacy, you fight so much more on the stack.
Yeah, because you have access to Force of Will Days, so you can commit something
for no mana.
Yeah, well, you can commit something with your mana and then interact and protect.
Right.
For no mana, and so you certainly do interact on the stack a lot more because you can do both things.
Right.
But continue.
So in Modern, we see less of Delver strategies, but they do exist.
Yes.
And so, like, I think the card in Modern, even though it's not as frequently played as I think that it should be, that has replaced Delver in Legacy is Dragon's Rage Channel, or DRC. So, very easy to get Delirium, land, instant sorcery creature. A lot of decks have those. You get them in the graveyard. Now you get a 3/3 flyer that has to attack. Right? Not a terrible situation. And it has upside of when you cast cards at instant speed or instants or sorceries, non-creature spells.
Yeah, just anything that's not on creature.
You're going to get a free Surveil 1.
Yep.
Okay.
So now you're increasing your card quality.
Yep.
You're more
Churning
likely to have
deck.
the stuff you need. Yep.
It's an excellent card. And so a lot of the strategy that goes into Delver strategies is how much am I willing to commit to protect this threat?
Yep.
Or how many resources can I force you to have to get rid of my threat? Because there are times where it's like, I'm willing to fight to protect this, and I'm willing to fight until one of us has no more resources. Or I extract so many resources from you and allow this thing to be killed, and then I have something else that I can use to regain advantage. So, A, it's a great strategy because the creature has evasion.
Mm-hmm.
B, it's a great strategy because it's about the slowest clock that can win you a game.
Yes.
But it can win you the game.
Yep.
And it allows you the versatility to decide I will fight to protect or I will fight to exhaust.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so if like I fight to exhaust, okay, I'm 1 mana down on my threat.
Yeah.
Here's another mana. I'm right back. We're doing
right.
it all
Yeah.
over.
Like I play my Delver, you kill it. Like unless somehow you had a 0 mana kill.
Yeah.
Like we're exactly even. We've both spent 1 mana. We've both spent 1 card.
Yeah.
That's fine with me because also in your spending your time to answer my threat, you didn't deploy one of your own.
Right.
So now we're back to even, and okay, once again I get to make the same choice. Either do I have another threat, or now do I hold up, and now you go to your turn. If I didn't do anything, you're like, wait, he's got open mana.
Right.
I can't play into these answers, so I do nothing, which just buys me more time to then find the next thing, and then I can go, ooh, super cheap threat, and hold up my interaction.
We were talking about bluffing the other day, and how it's almost 100% the right move to force your opponent to have the answer to the thing that you would otherwise bluff.
Yep.
And I really got to thinking about that because I've been watching a lot of Luis Scott Vargas recently.
Mm-hmm.
I am wondering if that's not the right way to think about bluffing in Magic the Gathering. I'm now wondering if it's like you represent a play pattern that is not the one that you're actively having, and you're trying to get your opponent, you're effectively trying to next level your opponent by basically saying, I'm going left, but when I'm actually going right.
Yeah, so like along those lines, like as soon as you said, like I don't think that's the right way to think about bluffing, I was like, okay, is it because, and this is happening in my head as I'm listening, I was thinking like, okay, do you mean that what you really have to do is you can't bluff on a single turn? I can't play because I don't have Lightning Bolt in my hand. I can't make plays that very clearly signal I don't have Lightning Bolt in my hand. But then on one turn, leave up mana to represent Lightning Bolt when you need me to have it. Mm-hmm. And have you be like, well, yeah, but like you've let my creature live for past 2 turns. So unless it was your most recent draw, you don't have it. So I'm just going to force you to have it because if you do, fine, the thing that I've been expecting to happen happens, and if not, I'm still in a good position.
Then you had one of those answers, and like, I delver my
own
threat.
And then you also get more information, because then you know that I certainly don't have it if you attack again, and I let it live, and I was representing having Bolt. So instead, like, to effectively bluff, what I think what you're saying is you have to, like, almost have a multi-turn bluff.
Yeah.
So I can think of one way you do this is, you know, you get into maybe like kind of like a back and forth matchup, and you're kind of at the point where maybe you're both top decking, you're very low resources, and instead of being like, ooh, I drew a threat I could try to play this turn, if their 1 card in hand isn't an answer, I'm up and just jam it and hope. You instead be like, ooh, I drew a threat, I'm gonna wait until I drew a second one. Mm-hmm. And so then you're sitting there and your opponent thinks, well, my opponent's either got only reactive cards or nothing. And then I go, okay, drew my second threat. Now I'm going to go on turn because I go threat, you answer it, and I go threat again. Mm-hmm. And now the odds of you having twice the answer are that much harder. And so in that situation, maybe I made my opponent think I have no threats in my hand.
Right.
When in fact I was waiting till a point where I had 2.
So the most common bluff that I find myself using when I play Storm is that I don't play out my cost reducer on turn 2. Mm-hmm. So you have said this multiple times on camera, and I have had it happen multiple times playing in person. On my turn 2, I will do like Ren's Resolve.
Yep, just like, okay, this.
And then my opponent immediately thinks, oh, he doesn't have it.
Yeah.
So then they feel comfortable, and then they do something like stupid, like tap out on turn 3.
Even though they had the spell snare.
Right. And then I go, land, cost reducer, start to chain off.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, why would you sandbag it? And I was like, because I win.
Yeah, because now you don't get to kill it.
Right.
Where if I just played my Ruby Medallion on turn 2, I don't get anything out of it.
Right.
And maybe
I play directly into your spell snare. Now you've stolen the turn. Now you're back. You know.
Right. Yeah. And like so that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think you're right in that like the bluffing of a single turn of, ooh, I have the thing right now, doesn't work. But maybe if you want to try to bluff, or maybe some people would call it next leveling or whatever, but it's playing the mind game of manipulating not only, it's not just my cards drawn in the order I drew them versus my opponent's cards drawn in the order I've done them. It's now you're playing the mind game of getting your opponent to the point of either thinking they can or can't win. So either you get them into false confidence or a lack of confidence, and you're in a much better position. We've both had the experience multiple times playing something our opponent deemed as control, whether it was control or not, because some people see interaction spells and they say that's control.
It's okay.
Oh yeah, and like you literally see them just like slump in their seat. Like their shoulders drop. They like put their hands are on the table now. They're not in the game, or they've lost before they actually lost, because you just make them think they're like, I've literally had opponents say this out loud in the middle of the match, like,
I can't read.
Like, you're just gonna have a counter spell.
Yeah.
And they don't play the thing.
Oh my god, I was playing this last week at F&M, and I cannot remember who I was playing, but I sat there and watched them convince themselves what I was going to do. Like, oh, you played this, so it's probably like this into that or whatever. And then he was like, well, if that's the case, then I can't do this. And they were talking their thoughts out loud, and I was like, this is amazing.
I think people will do that when they think that it's like all face-up information, because like, well, very clearly because you're the one who has it in hand.
Yeah.
And you're just like, you're looking at two lands and you didn't play one, which I think is my biggest bluff. Yeah. Is sometimes just not playing a land on turn, not on a critical turn on early turns, but like you've gotten into that later game position where it's kind of like, ooh, what do we have? And it's like,
you've got to have the answer. Look at all the cards you have in hand.
Yeah, or a few weeks ago I played just the Grixis control deck, Frog, Tameo, Flame of Venor, that sort of stuff. And I had one turn that I remember specifically where I had I think it was like a backup Tameo. I had an unflipped Tameo in play, and I had another in my hand, and I drew a land. And it was like, oh, I should just play the land. But it's like, no, if I don't play the land and I haven't played this other Tameo, now I'm holding on two cards. It looks more like I'm sitting on just more of the complete answers reaction that my deck is full of. So they don't want to play into it unless they have like two answers, which then I was screwed anyway.
Sure.
And so it's like, oh, and then the next turn I drew a land, and then you play a land. And now your opponent's really convinced that you don't have a second land in hand, because if you had one before, you would have played it because you just played the second one.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, okay, I'll keep this.
The denial of information is sometimes greater than the misdirect.
So, yeah.
Anyway, Delver.
Yes.
Wonderful archetype. The main idea is it's a creature that becomes bigger. Usually it has evasion, and you try and, like, most of your deck is built to protect that threat and having it, quote unquote, carry you over the finish line.
Yeah.
It works from everything from legacy to limited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and generally it's a cheap threat you can get down early, and then you just kind of protect it along the way. And then, as we mentioned way earlier in the show, if it dies, you just don't care,
right?
Because you invested so little,
right?
Usually those decks have a lot of card selection. And like, so the legacy version that, the naming is all based off of is like Ponder, Brainstorm, just like great cantrips. So they're not going up on cards. It's simply just, I'm trading this card for a better card. And those cards see so many cards that sometimes you can be like, I'm going to wait for this Brainstorm until I know what I need to do with it. And then like, do I find like, okay, which of these things, if in your top three cards you find some sort of counter magic and a lightning bolt, you're like, well, I know which one I need, and I can grab that one, where maybe before a certain position in the game I didn't have it. If you look at a lot of the decks that are being played in Modern right now, and you listen to a lot of people talk about it, they'll say things like, oh, like Preordain's a bad card right now, and I think it's just that you can't jam cantrips in the dark, because a cantrip in itself is not a bad card, but you have to know what you're looking for it. It can't just be, I'm going to play this cantrip and just get something.
I disagree. To me, there are so many cards now that are both answers and threats that it's almost like ubiquitous. like what you get, because it's like, oh, if I find solitude.
Well, I mean, but if solitude is a thing, but that's then on the proactive side, you're fine with it because it can be a threat.
Yeah.
But like in decks that normally would play preordain, you don't have some of those kinds of things
Like Delver.
Yeah, and so like a Delver strategy is usually using its cantrips not to find the Delver, but to find the thing it needs to get the Delver across the finish line.
Right.
And so I think often people think of cantrip as my turn one play.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go turn one, land, preordain.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's the way you want to utilize cantrips in Modern anymore.
Okay.
It's not just dig for blind resources. It's the cantrip is the thing you hold on to until later. And so it's like, okay, the game has gone through. Now I know what I'm looking for. Now I can dig for it because, man, I really need to find that Pyroclasm against Boros Energy.
So it's closer to Ancient Stirrings now than
Yeah, it's more of look for the thing I need when I need it, and it gives me a little bit more digging power for cheap. Because now it's turn 4, my opponent has Ocelot Pride, a Guide of Souls, and 2 tokens, and they're threatening to grow one of them the next turn.
Mm-hmm.
I can now go on my turn, play a land. Okay, I don't have the thing I need yet. Preordain. Look at the top 2 cards. Well, it's a miss and another preordain. Okay, put the miss at the bottom, grab the preordain. Now I get to look at 2 more cards.
Right.
Okay, I didn't find it there. Put both of those bottom, draw. Oh, there's my Pyroclasm.
Right.
Boom, I found the thing.
2 mana, 6 cards into your deck.
Versus if I did it on turn 1, it's just like, I don't know, I guess what's my most generically powerful card. But what you talked about is because things can be so powerful, is that the decks that have very powerful proactive things to engage don't need the cantrip because they'd rather just stack their deck full of more proactive things.
Mm-hmm.
Where the deck that wants to play kind of back and forth reactive, it's I don't play my preordain on turn 1, I wait and it's a turn 3 play when I'm like, okay, now I know the shape of the game, how it's forming up. Do I need more answers? Am I shy a threat? Now I can dig for it. I think it's why naturally people find cards like something like maybe Flame of Venor or Expressive Iteration, Consult the Star Charts is a new one, as more powerful because you're forced to wait until later to play those.
Mm-hmm.
Expressive Iteration is a turn 3 play most of the time because you need to be able to maybe also play the land off of it. But what that does inherently in just the play pattern of the card that is correct is it made you wait, so you're making the decision of which 3 cards do I take with more information. And I think people are used to playing cantrips in the blind because from times in the past when formats weren't as powerful, you're just like, I'm just going to turn 1 jam Serum Visions, draw a random card, scry 2, are these good cards generically?
Mm-hmm.
And like, okay, maybe I need my 3rd land, maybe I don't. And then just like sculpt a decent hand kind of in all situations. I guess it really just harkens back to the same thing as like card advantage doesn't exist anymore. Your cantrip is not a card advantage spell, it's a card selection spell, but your card selection doesn't matter if you don't know what you need to select.
Sure.
So
there's a prerequisite to it.
So it's like delay your cantrips till later rather than playing them early. So in a Delver strategy kind of makes you want to do that. You want to play the Delver first and then cantrip behind it.
Right.
And so it kind of naturally led you to that good play pattern of cantrips. So it's not, I want to play my cantrip first and then deploy my threat. But maybe you have to cantrip early because you need the threat. But then you have to know the matchup is the match where you need the threat online early and not one where you can sit back on answers, because if you don't have a threat, your hand is most likely full of answers, right? So it's the more information you can have before you deploy a card that is about card selection is, I think, going to yield you better results overall, which is kind of what the Delver strategy as an archetype is kind of all boiled up into. Is it's the make good choices, win games archetype.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay,
that's not for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, and we mentioned in our favorite decks we've ever played episode that like that's my favorite style of Magic to play. Is I want to know the choices I made mattered, and while Delver decks are not the only strategy that does this, it definitely feels like they're the ones that kind of across the board if you made good decisions, or if you win, it means you made a lot of good decisions. Where there are other decks that sometimes you can be like, yeah, my decision making was kind of iffy that game, and I still just got there because A plus B equals win.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna deviate slightly from the archetype conversation. I want to throw a topic out, and I want you to give me your yes, no, yes it is, or no it's not, and why opinion on it. Here's my statement. I think Wrath of Skies is the best card in Modern.
Okay.
I think it answers such an unbelievable amount of what we see not only being played right now, but just like the fact that the format is being pushed to have things that cost less and less and less, just makes something like Wrath of Skies, even on turn 2, just a wonderful play. So, like, I'm working on a deck that's basically Bant Wrath of Skies.
Okay.
And so I'm playing Attune the Ether and Tune the Narrative. Like, can we get some better naming for energy cards here? Because there's a lot of tuning.
Yes. Which is funny because energy has nothing to do with sound.
Yeah, correct.
So
basically, 1 mana, draw a card in some way or form, make 2 energy, 8 of those spells.
Yep. Assuming then you also have Discharge as a removal spell because it also uses the energy. Oh, no, Banned. So, Static Prison?
Certainly, I mean,
okay,
that's a choice, right?
Yeah.
Where I am right now with the deck is those energy providers, Wrath of Skies.
Yep.
Now, how do I want to win the game?
Okay, yeah.
So, those kinds of cantrips don't give you card selection so much as, like, they're basically just, I'm drawing a card, here's
replace
energy.
the card, here's this other resource, rather than I get a Scry, I get a Surveil, whatever. It's, I get this other thing that's useful, so it's still giving you value just in a different manner.
Right. So, the reason why I say I think Wrath of Skies is the best card in the format is there are plenty of decks now that are based off Opal, Amber, Bauble. So, 2 mana, you get, I mean, you're going to sack your Baubles in response, right?
Sure.
But 2 mana, you're probably getting Opal, Amber, or some combination of therein, or all of their clue tokens, food tokens.
Also, in those decks you're mentioning with Opal and Amber, there's often a lot of other cheap things that Wrath of the Skies can also hit, whether it's the Pinnacle Emissary now spinning out a bunch of 1/1s, Tamios, whatever. It also cleans up Urza Saga, which is also nice in those same decks.
You set back a land, you set back the plethora of good 1-drop creatures, Tameo, Ragavan, Nethergoyf, DRC, what the Cecil card that's going to see some
Death
play,
Shadow.
Death Shadow.
Like, you can just keep on going on.
Yeah, there's a bunch of good
Guide of Souls, Ocelot Pride,
all of that. And so on turn 2, if you go one of the 2 energy cards,
gain 2 energy, whichever way it is.
You go and get a white source. You need another white source. Clearly, you build your deck to have a bunch of white sources.
Yes.
You can Wrath, and I think, like, if you get, I very rarely play Wrath of Skies where it's not a 3-for-1. You know, so if you're getting 3-for-1 value, then then I think that you've pulled ahead, whether or not you're on the player draw, and that's the other consideration, is that I've always felt like I get draw way more than I get play.
Yeah.
And so I've always liked strategies that helped me, quote unquote, get the play back.
Yep.
And Wraths are one of them. And this is the cheapest Wrath that we have.
Very much so.
What's the word I want? Based upon something else. Based upon how the amount of energy you have. It's the cheapest Wrath that we have. You don't have to invest X mana to make energy.
You can always spend only 2 mana if you want to.
Right.
But it can scale beyond that because it's just like, I always have this pool sitting elsewhere.
Right. So it gets artifacts, enchantments, and creatures.
Yep.
So that leaves as, like, permanents it doesn't hit, planeswalkers.
Which is probably where your strategy will be based on.
Well, you don't want to wrath your own shit, do you?
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, finding good, cheap planeswalker in Bant colors shouldn't be hard. Teferi. Some kind of Nissa.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
Whatever.
Yeah, you can find some stuff to do there.
You know, that kind of thing. So, like, Karn. If you wanted to play, like, a toolboxy, kind of strategy.
Although getting rid of your artifacts that Karn gets, not so great.
Correct. And
So-
that is the downside clearly with playing this particular Wrath is that it hits such a broad swath of like the permanent types.
Yeah.
That like you have to be fine losing a big chunk, right?
Yep.
So like I've really wanted to play it with Guide of Souls because Guide of Souls makes a bunch of energy. But then you lose your own board.
Right. Yeah.
So like I am also wondering if it's something that's like, and this is probably getting too cute, but if it's something like I'm going to 2 mana, I play out Guide of Souls, Ocelot Pride, I build up a pool of energy, right? I fall behind in the game.
Yep.
I reset the board or whatever. I have enough mana, and I go Dewdrop Cure or something like that.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
bring
Something
back
brings back your stuff.
or I
yeah.
warp in the Starfield Shepherd now, and I'm like, okay, ETB, I'm gonna go get a 1-drop.
Yeah. Okay.
Ephemerate that, go get another 1-drop. Okay, now I've got my Guide Pride engine again.
Yeah.
Let's restart the game.
Yeah.
Except now I have this massive pool of energy sitting, on
Yeah.
turn 4, turn 5, where I didn't have it on turn 1.
Right.
Something like that. And so, but I think that the decks that are playing like Opal Amber, make a bunch of artifact tokens, play a bunch of cheap creatures like Boros,
Yep.
are just to the point where it's like they don't have a way. They can't rebuild their board as quickly as like someone that's like, this is what I'm doing, come at me.
Yep.
And I don't know that there's the kind of like discard permission type of effects in the game right now that are going to prevent you from basically saying like, well, it's such a bad time to play Wrath of Skies. So how far off base am I?
So I agree in the fact that I think Wrath of Skies is a very powerful card that can have strategies built around it. I don't agree with the statement that it's the best card in the format. And I guess I'll express that in 2 ways.
Do you think there is a best card?
Right now, I don't think there is a clear answer for what is the singular best card, and I think that is perfect.
Yeah.
Because when there is one, a la the One Ring,
Yeah.
it's just like, well, this is stupid because it's very obviously that card. So if you're not playing that card, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage because in a format that can be as powerful as Modern, like to have a clear this is the most powerful card means it's just kind of in a vacuum that powerful and it doesn't need to be enabled. You didn't need to enable the One Ring, where like even take something like Wrath of the Skies. If you don't have other energy producers, the card is much worse. So a card like Tune the Narrative is arguably one of the worst cantrips we have in Modern.
Very bad.
But when it enables your other good card, it's like, okay, now this is a thing. And I think that is where like the best aspects of Magic come out and making a good format is when like not everything wants the same stuff. And like the goal for any deck is to try to get to a certain power level, but there's so many different ways to get there. You can have energy producers that give you some other sort of incidental value that you play for cheap that then enable your other card to become really good, which elevates the power of your deck up. If you had to play Wrath of the Skies, if every other energy card did not exist in the game and Wrath of the Skies was the only one, the card is probably close to worse than most other Wraths. Have. Because then, like, casting it for 4 mana, the same cost as Damnation, it's like, well, I didn't get everything that could have been played up to this point. And that's the point of the Wrath of the Skies is, like, I can invest 2 mana and hit Sheoldred's, Urza Saga tokens. I can hit Mox Opals. I can hit all of these kinds of things. A similar card that has tried to fill that kind of role is, like, Engineered Explosives. But that one is so narrow that you can't have a wide and varied sort of.
It's great if everybody's playing 2-drops.
Yeah, if everybody's playing 2s, Engineered Explosive is great. Or if everybody's playing 0s, I've played it many times simply because it's like, well, this is my answer to opponents playing Urza Saga and making constructs. Is I can just go drop this 2 mana, your constructs are all dead. Sweet. Okay, let's go from there. So I really like the design of the card. I think it's a good card. I think there are 2 things in my mind that make it not the best card, or I would say even a contender for the best card.
Ooh, interesting. All right.
So One is one of the ways I like to evaluate cards is you can ask yourself 3 questions. What does the card do when you're behind? What does the card do in the games at parity? What does the card do when you're ahead? And Wrath of the Skies is really great in 2 of those 3.
Yeah.
When you're ahead, it doesn't do great, and I think in order to be best card, you kind of have to be good in those all kinds of situations. Which means, I guess I would say by that, I think naturally a purely reactive card cannot be the best card in the format, and I think that's good.
Let me return serve, sir.
Okay.
When we have cards like the pitch elementals,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't Wrath, or like maybe there's a way with like the discarding effects of cards,
Mm-hmm.
which very clearly don't happen in white.
Yeah.
But like that will take that card from it. This does nothing when you're ahead to when you are ahead. This enables the other 6 to 8 cards you might have put in the list.
Well, like,
Well, Solitude being.
how does Wrath of the Skies enable Solitude when you're ahead?
Well, maybe they've played a threat. Maybe they've played a threat like Murktide Regent,
Okay.
where you don't have the energy to wrath it off the board, but you could pitch it to Solitude to effectively answer the card.
Okay. So, like, sure, but any white card fits that. So I don't think that's a big bump for this to say, hey, look, now
right.
now it's good when I'm ahead, because you're actually describing a situation where you're at best at parity, if not behind.
Okay.
Because they have a threat that you cannot answer in any other way, right? And so when I'm ahead is I have control of the game, and any one play they make does not swing that back into their favor unless it is a huge play, right? And you're talking about a card that when it's on the other side, your opponent's saying, hey, I'm really far ahead, unless they Wrath of the Skies, and that brings the game back to parity. And so, like, I don't think, because it cannot, there's 1/3 of the game situations, if you want to break a game down into simply those 3 categories, I'm ahead, at parity, behind. It's not good in one of those. If you're like, man, I really would like to close this game 1 turn faster, and you Wrath this guys, you're like, that didn't help. Right? So I think that kind of thing there to I guess help solidify my point for anybody who's maybe still like, I'm not really picking up what you're putting down here, guy. Compare Wrath of the Skies to Kozilek's Command. Kozilek's Command can be great when you're behind. I can tell you, because I've been ahead of an opponent playing Kozilek's Command, and they play Kozilek's Command, and I'm like, shit, game just turned. Right? They took away my best threat, and they dug super far into their deck, and then they took the best of those cards. Or the thing you always hope for is they went like Scry 4, all 4 bottom, draw a random card. It's when they go Scry 4, these 3 bottom, this 1 top, draw, and I'm like, shit. Like, I'm done. That's it. They did it, because that card was another Kozilek's Command. Or they're like, I made 1 billion extra spawns, which is now going to, I get to hit Emrakul.
Now the Scry 4 is a Scry 9.
Yeah, the next Kozilek's Command is huge. It just enables all the things. And so then, great when you're behind, because it does so many things. It can swing you back. Great at parity, because whatever you need it does. And when you're ahead, hey, I've started to assemble some pieces. I've got my Blade of the Blood Chief and my Brood Scale, but I don't have anything to do with it. Oh wait, this card now does it, and that's because that card is so flexible, and that card does 4 things, versus Wrath of the Skies technically you say at best does 3. It removes artifacts, creatures, and enchantments, and like things like that. So I think in comparison, a card that looks very similar on the face, even down to the mana cost is X, pip, and then you do some things. I think Kozilek's Command is better.
Sure.
Harder to enable, because you have to play a more restrictive cost, and so maybe that puts them at par. But then also, just simply because the card is not proactive, I don't think it can be the best one, because if you could put a deck together of 24 lands and 36 Wrath of the Skies, you would never win a game.
Correct.
And that is a very simplistic way to boil something down like this. But that's kind of like, you take things to the most extreme and say, like, even compared to a card that is generally reactive, Lightning Bolt.
Yeah.
Lightning Bolt can be proactive. So
Yeah.
Lightning Bolt is a card that I say it's good when I'm behind.
Yep.
Because it kills the thing that's put me behind. It's good at parity. I killed your blocker, so now my threat gets through. And it's good when I'm ahead. This heals you 1 turn faster because it's an extra Delver hit along the way. So I think that like Wrath of the Skies, very powerful card. I think it is the exact kind of card that we want to promote the design of, because it is not ubiquitously good. You have to play certain things to make it good, and I think when we have a format that is full of decks that are, these cards are all C's, these cards are B's, but when you put them together, the cards that were C's become B's, and the card that was a B becomes an A+. That's when you end up having good formats, because it's like, as the Yawgmoth
synergy.
Yeah, as the Yawgmoth player, I want Young Wolf and Wall of Roots. When you look at them on their face and you say, hey, compare that to Boros Energy, people will be like, these cards suck.
Yeah.
Like, these cards are absolutely terrible.
You're going to get hosed.
Which is why, when I was trying to explain to my wife, who does not play Magic and does not understand Magic beyond what she listens to on this podcast, because she's a wonderful supporter of me.
She is very great.
And I said, kill the idiots. She doesn't know what I mean, but an established Magic player goes, kill the idiots.
Got it.
Oh, okay. Wall of Roots. You're going to die.
You're dead. Fatal
Like,
push.
yeah, like, I'm getting rid of that. I'm going to bring in a sweeper to sweep up all the stupid little dumb pieces of cardboard that aren't worth the cost you pay for them, until all of a sudden I go, Yawgmoth, and you're like, oh crap, those two Young Wolves are really scary now, because now they potentially represent, he just drew his whole deck.
So I have one additional question that came up when you were describing the difference between Wrath and Kozilek's Command. Should colorless be considered more often as like a color that you're basing your deck design around?
When it has the actual pips and the cost, yes. Which is, I think, one of the problems of most, like, a lot of times, because they've only done that very few times. Put the actual colorless pip in a cost. Because Kozilek's Command is extremely restrictive. Except for the fact that Eldrazi Temple also exists, so one land enables that whole cost. But whatever. But, like, having to fulfill that colorless pip is a lot harder because, well, you don't really have fetchable lands that enables. So now you've taken out the land base of every other modern deck. So, okay, I have to play with a different set of rules here. I have to have lands that produce this other thing. But then a lot of times the cards that are designed as in the same vein as these I have colorless pips cards are just generic mana cards. And because, well, the colorless pips don't fit in every set mechanically, I guess, because they'd have to enable it for everything down to the draft format in every set to have enough colorless mana producing lands, and then now that's a restriction, and now you're bending over backwards to make that work, so we won't have that, but we want to put this cool big dumb thing. And so, like, you know, and I know somebody's gonna be like, well, story wise this doesn't make sense, but like, take Ugin for example. Ugin is just any 7 mana, but if you were required to play a specific color, in air quotes for people who are only listening and not watching, to play Ugin because it had colorless pips, now it's a lot more difficult to play and is then just like any other card. It's just that I've chosen a color that is harder to enable than most other ones.
So Ugin's thing is that he uses kind of this colorless form of ether as mana to create magic.
Yep.
But the problem game-wise from that story point is that he ends up being played with Eldrazi lands and or cards almost exclusively because they make colorless mana. Yeah. And he makes now generic mana.
Yes.
And like there's so little distinction between those two things that now these two mortal enemies are always consistently played together and therefore working together. Yeah, and so it's like, oh, well, Ugin fought against the Eldrazi, and the Eldrazi were the thing that said, here's the actual colorless as a color idea on them, so Ugin can't have those because he's different. But it's just like, well, they could just be two sides of the same coin, or, you know, whatever, and he just uses colorless mana differently than they do. By the way, the idea for the Eldrazi is just fantastic.
Yeah, but anyway, so I think like colorless as a color, I think is a fantastic idea rather than just making things easier to cast by anyone. And so like imagine if something like Karn wasn't just any 4 mana, but it was 2 colorless.
Right. It's infinitely more difficult to cast.
Like, yeah, now your Blood Moon actually works against a Tron deck.
Right.
Because it's like you can't cast that thing without other stuff.
Right.
You either have to have an answer to this, which means now you're playing some number of Boseiju and Forests, which then makes like things that add tension and decision making, not only with the game when it's being played, but the game that begins when you're sitting by yourself, poring over MTG Goldfish, trying to decide how to build a deck. Like, things that add tension, all of those points are what can make the game even better, because the more decisions you have to make and the more calculus you have to do back and forth of, well, do I do this or this, like, makes the game more interesting, because now even if we play a similar archetype, you're playing it differently than I am. And now that's interesting, because it's not just like, well, I know exactly what you're doing, and so I know exactly what your whole list is or whatever, which, like, if you're playing a stock list and you go sit at an F&M, at least half of the people you're sitting across from, as soon as they see the first 2 cards you play, like, oh, I know what list you're playing.
Right.
And I know all of the cards you have and all of these things, and now we've taken out some of that tension of like, what do I need to be prepared for? What do I not? All this stuff, because, like, the more we can say, hey, take your own spin on it because you went left when another person went right. So even these things are the same. You've got these 7 cards and they've got these 7 cards because they wanted to lean into this and you wanted to lean into this. Now that's more interesting to the game.
Yeah. So, I mean, we can always find more awesome archetypes to discuss.
Yes.
But I think 90 minutes on the topic plus the tangents is probably pretty sufficient for most listeners.
Probably good.
Yeah. So we did it.
All right. Adios.